You're listening to the Jōrni Podcast. Wondering how breathwork can create lasting shifts in your life? Get the answers in today's episode. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer, and with decades of experience with sadness, pain, anxiety, and stress, I finally figured out how to leave all that behind. And this podcast shows you how to break free permanently so you can reclaim your sanity and find the self-esteem and energy to go after the life you desire. With real talk about mental health, holistic healing, and the tough journey of coming out the other end. This is the Jōrni Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. This episode explores the transformative power of breathwork and how it can help us reconnect with our bodies and release stress we may not even realize we're holding on to. We look into the ways breathwork can serve as a tool for slowing down, tuning in, and transforming both our mental and physical well-being. Clare Pritchard's journey into breathwork began with an accidental class attendance that quickly became a life-changing passion. As someone who once thrived in the fast lane, constantly busy and unknowingly stressed, Clare found breathwork as the tool she needed to slow down and completely transform her life. Through breathwork, Clare discovered she had been ignoring crucial stress signals from her body for years. After diving into 4 breathwork courses, she didn't just learn techniques. She totally flipped the script on how she saw herself and how she connected with everyone around her. Now she combines breath techniques with somatic movements to tap into her body's wisdom. As a breathwork coach, Clare is dedicated to helping others use breathwork as their tool to take back control of their life, guiding them to use the power of breath to start living. Here is my interview with Clare Pritchard. Hi, Clare. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because transformational breathwork is such a wonderful and interesting topic for our conversation today. And honestly, I don't think we've dedicated an entire episode to it yet. So this will be fantastic today. So thank you for being here today, for joining me, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and to talk about breathwork. If I can talk about breathwork at any stage, I'm a happy girl.
Yeah, it sounds like you're very, very passionate about it. So we'll definitely dive into that and explore that today. Now, for starters, would you like to share a little bit about yourself with our listeners? I have a feeling that there's always a story and a personal experience when we're really passionate about something and then we end up working with others on that. So would you like to share a bit about your story and how you came to breathwork and how you work with that today?
Of course, yes. So I am a breathwork coach and facilitator. So I'm trained in multiple different types of breathwork, which has just organically grown. I've completed one course and I've wanted to go deeper, so I've completed another course. But it all initially started from attending a class that I thought was a meditation class. It turned out to be a breathwork class, and I was like, what on earth was that? Like, I need to go back. So that essentially was one of the best mistakes I've ever made in my life. And then it literally just started from there. I initially trained in transformational breathwork. So that is that deeper style of breathing where we release suppressed emotions, we release stress that we hold into the body, because that shows up in physical sides, it shows up in a dysregulated nervous system, all these different types. And then I wanted to go a bit deeper into the science. And it was with that I then found out that my nervous system was very dysregulated. I was stuck in this fight or flight branch of the nervous system. And essentially, breathwork was that way to bring me out of that dysregulation. But at the time, when I first started breathwork, I had no idea I was stuck in that state. And I look back now and I'm like, how did you not know? Like, I couldn't sit still. Like, I remember I'd got up early one morning with my sister. We've gone for a walk. We've done the big shop. Like, we've ticked everything off. We've had a gorgeous Sunday and it's about 3:00. And she's like, let's sit down and watch TV. And I'm like, we can't sit down. It's 3:00. We've got at least another 5 hours left of the day. We need to go and do things. Let's go on another walk. Let's go and do this. And obviously, like, my body is like, red alarm, sitting still, doing nothing, that's not happening. And then like the to-do list, like there's always something on the to-do list, like I always have to be doing something. And it's actually quite a recent, as I've been diving a bit deeper with this, I am addicted to chaos. Like that, my nervous system is addicted to that chaos. So I'm organized. Like I will have my to-do list. I plan my breathwork sessions. I have a calendar that tells me where I'm doing everything. But sometimes I won't complete tasks because that allows me to still have my brain thinking about it. And my brain thinking about it keeps me in the activated state where my body is safe. So essentially, it's been a big full circle finding out about the fact that I've dysregulated and then using breath work as my tool to then regulate myself and come back into this state of safety within my nervous system. So a very, very good mistake that I made going to that meditation class. And I actually cannot believe it's got me to this level of understanding of my body and my nervous system and the breath and everything now. But it's essentially, without being a bit cliche, like it has completely changed my life.
Thank you so much for sharing that part of your journey with us. And that was a very fortunate mistake. So yeah, wonderful. All the things that you learned about yourself and now you can work with clients with that as well. And I just want to talk a little bit about what breathwork actually is, because some of the listeners might be listening to this and going, well, I'm breathing right now, but it doesn't really do anything for me. So what does that even mean? So there's obviously a lot to breathwork, and yes, it does involve the breath, but there's much more to that. So do you want to maybe explain a little bit about what breathwork actually is and how that works in the body?
Of course, yeah. I always say if I had £1 for every time someone said to me, but I'm breathing right now, what is there to learn? I'd be living in the Maldives. But essentially, breath work is how we use our breath to change our state. So whether that's physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. So we have our nervous system. I'm actually just on a nervous system course now, so going quite deep on this, but people will often hear of us having these two states of our nervous system. So the sympathetic, the fight or flight, and the parasympathetic, the rest and digest. But actually there's a theory by Stephen Porges, which is polyvagal theory, and gives us our 3 branches. And essentially we need to be able to move through these 3 branches to be able to have a healthy nervous system, to complete our tasks, to let our body restore and recover after a day of completing our tasks. And essentially the breath is our way to be able to do that. So the way that I talk about breathwork is that breathwork is your tool. Like the breathwork is your tool to be able to move through these different states of the nervous system when you need it. So if you think of that post-lunch slump when you've got no energy, you're tired, you're like, oh, I don't want to do anything, I don't want to do any work. You can do an energizing breath to give you that energy to then be able to complete whatever it is that you need to do. Or if you're feeling stressed and anxious, if you can't sleep, if you are in that heightened state, you can then use breathwork to bring your body back down into its ventral vagal, which is the safety area. And then you'll be able to go to sleep if that's what you want. Obviously, you're then telling your body you're safe and bringing yourself out of this stress and anxiety state. But then you've also got that transformational breathing that I spoke about earlier. So that is actually releasing what we potentially have suppressed over the past however many years. You know, we don't really get taught about emotional regulation. We kind of just get taught, you'll be okay, or it'll be fine, don't worry. Like if you cry, I don't think anyone doesn't like not apologize for crying. Like it's, oh, crying is a bad thing, and oh, I'm so sorry, I'm crying. So we just don't regulate ourselves very well. And so this transformational style of breathwork allows us to release this from the body. It allows us to gain altered states of consciousness. So we're able to shift these tensions from our body. We're able to rewire our beliefs, rewire our nervous system. We can have these like aha moments in this breathwork session. And that is because we're essentially turning down the noise on the prefrontal cortex. So that monkey mind that's like, you can't do this, everything has to be perfect, what's on the to-do list, have you sent the email? So we're actually turning down the noise on that, and we're tapping into our truer, like real self. And that's where we're seeing things with a different perspective. and we have these big aha moments. And then literally our functional breathing. So as people are listening to this, how are you breathing now? Because that will impact things like your stress management, your anxiety levels, your sleep, brain fog, concentration, because it's all to do then with the carbon dioxide and oxygen levels and delivery around the body. So it's a lot more than just I'm breathing now. And it just goes so much deeper and deeper the more you go into it. But for me, it's improving that day-to-day breathing. It's using the breath as a tool, and it's having that ability to release whatever it is that you're holding on to in your body.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring the nervous system into this, because that obviously is a huge component of when we go through stress, how we respond to stress, and also whether or not we're experiencing chronic stress that determines what happens or doesn't happen to us. So yeah, a really important piece to be aware of. And I love breathwork in a sense because it is available to anyone. We don't need any big equipment or fancy, expensive things that we have to buy to work with. The breath is within us all the time, and we can simply tune in and start working with that. So I love that part of it, because there's no excuse not to. It's your breath. You can work with it anytime you choose. So yeah, I love that piece of it as well. Now, when we talk about breath work, is obviously an intention behind that as well. We're not just sitting there breathing like we just said. We are putting some intentional things behind that breath. And what are we in turn affecting with breath work? So one piece was the nervous system, so that we can either energize, we can kind of contribute to more of the sympathetic. We can also maybe deactivate on the parasympathetic if we're too revved up. Anything else that we're affecting in the body when we are intentionally working with our breath?
So essentially the nervous system rules everything. So it's that autonomic system, it's automated. So once we're getting control of that nervous system, that's going to then seep out into the other areas. So I think it does for me mainly base around that nervous system. So if we're in that sympathetic state and we're heightened, we're not digesting our food, we're having those stress hormones released around the body. But if we're able to have that tool to then bring ourselves back round, that the byproduct of that is then a functioning digestive system, reduced stress hormones. So I think for me, it is mainly that nervous system as that central base. And once we're able to understand that more and understand the messages that nervous system is sending to us, that's where all the answers happen. So one of the things that I learned when I first started doing it myself is that I enjoyed breathwork because I liked the tingles, the sensations, what you could feel in your body. But the reason that I liked that is because that was the first time in about 29 years that I'd actually tapped into my body. Like I lived in my brain. I could analyze everything. I was so self-aware. I could write you your lists and explain everything from all the podcasts and books and everything, but I couldn't feel it in my body. And when I started working with a coach, and she was like, well, describe that emotion. And I would describe the situation. I couldn't pick the emotion up. So I could describe a situation, but I couldn't pick that emotion. And then it was when we worked and I could find that emotion, it was like, well, how can you feel that in your body? Where do you feel? And I was like, what do you mean? Where do I feel it in my body? Like, I haven't got a clue. But it's now like slowing down and really being able to be like, okay, when I feel scared, I can feel that in my stomach, the pit of the stomach. That's where the fear is. Or if I'm feeling happy, it's up in my chest and I can feel it up here. And they're then the signs and signals that I can receive from my body, because my nervous system is more regulated, that then allow me to make decisions that support me. Whereas beforehand, like I walked around for 29 years saying, I'm not stressed. I don't really get stressed. I'm such a chill person. But the eczema on my skin would be flared up so much. And that was my body's way of saying, no, sorry, Claire, you are stressed. But I didn't know that. I didn't know that that's what it meant for me. So now anytime that I get a flare of eczema, I'm like, okay, that's a signal. What are we doing? How long's that to-do list? Have you had a day off? And that's when I start then coming back. So I think, to answer your question, it's central to the nerve. The nervous system is that main part.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because a lot of people tell me that they feel like walking heads because they live so much in their head and they've lost that connection to their body entirely. And some of them have even told me that they don't even feel hunger anymore, things like that, because they are so disconnected from that. So that's a huge part of reconnecting our mind to our body and actually coming back into our body to feel those sensations again. So I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah, and I think it is so common if you think like how much that we're consuming nowadays. We're on our phone, we're watching TV. Like if you're on the tube or on transport, you're not communicating, you're on your phone, you're flicking, and it's all such quick. Like even me, like if a video is long, I'm like, can I put this on 2 speed? Like, can I speed this up? Because I can't handle a video being long and me having to watch it all. And it's then regulating. And sometimes when I watch a video on 1 speed, I'm like, well, I'm in quite a chilled state now. My ventral vagal is doing well because I'm able to sit and do it. Whereas when I'm heightened, I need 2 speed. Like I pressed play on a voice note the other day and it was on 2 speed. And my dad was like, how did you even understand what that was? And I was like, years of practice.
Most of us don't even notice that we're doing that because it's just such a common day-to-day thing. So until we actually sit down and really think about that, become aware and conscious of what is happening, we might not even realize that our nervous system is entirely dysregulated. And I bet you now you can feel that difference from between when you said 29 years, you didn't really connect with your body. But now that you have regulated and you're on that path to healing, I would imagine that feels quite different than it did before.
Like my whole life is different. How I live my life, the choices that I make, the things that I do, everything is completely different. And like I'll laugh and I'll be like, there's pre-breathwork Claire and there's post-breathwork Claire, like before and after she figured it out. But it really has made that much of an impact on my life. And not as in like, I don't do anything that I used to, but I just make choices now that benefit me and my body. And I make choices that are going to support me. Like I was the biggest party girl when I was younger. Like if there was a party, I would be there 100%. I'd be last man standing. I'd drink you under the table. Like, and don't get me wrong, like I had a great time. But that was the girl who had no idea about her body. That was the girl that lived for the weekend, that would work in the evenings, that would this, and I was known that if you wanted to spend time with me, you'd have to book me up like 4 months in advance because I needed my diary full because I needed to be busy all the time. And now it's like, you can book me up 4 months in advance, but I'll be taking a few days just for myself now. And I'll say I'm busy. I'm not busy. I'm just having a day to myself so that I can regulate, so that I can come back, because it's not always about like doing for me now. It's about that calmer, relaxed life. And by no means am I perfect. Sometimes I'll look and I'll be like, oh, you've got a bit excited here. You've got like 3 weekends of activities. That 4th weekend, phones off, don't talk to me. Claire's out of office. And it's just that being able to recognize it and bring it back. And I think that's the important part. It's not being perfect. It's not having like this amazing regulated state all the time, because the world we live in, that's not possible. But it's being able to now notice, okay, you need to do this to bring yourself back into yourself and back into your body.
Yeah, and recognizing the importance of that, like you have, because there is a point in our lives where sometimes we feel guilty for taking that time because there are so many other things we should, quote unquote, be doing or taking care of. And I do, in the beginning, before I took actual time for self-care, I felt guilty about taking that time. I felt guilty about doing yoga in the middle of the day because it's like, well, people are working. Why are you taking an hour off to do yoga? But in the end, I paid for not doing that with my physical and mental health. And so there was a huge perspective shift in the fact that this is not a luxury or something that we just do. It is something that we really have to do if we want to stay healthy. So I'm glad you pointed that out, because that took a while to sink in. But once it did, it really did change everything, like it did with your life. So yeah. Really,
and I think it's
shift.
what you say there about that guilt as well. Like, that is so common. So many people that I speak to, it comes with that guilt because self-care is seen as that luxury. Like a massage is a luxury. It's all a luxury, and it's actually, how do we change the outlook that it's not a luxury? It is a necessity. Like, it's something that you have to do. And so many people that I speak to say, oh, I haven't got time for breath work. And it's like, it's not that you don't have time, it's that you're not making time, or you don't think you deserve the time. So it then comes back to like just digging a bit deeper. And often then it brings up that kind of like guilt, or that, oh, I've got kids and a husband and friends and dogs and parents that all need looking after. So it seems like everyone else is getting their needs met, but it's you that isn't. And yeah, what feeling is at the root of the thought that you don't have any time to do these different self-care practices?
Yeah, I feel, especially as women, there's usually a point where we put everyone else first. And then only when we get really sick or something really bad happens comes that point where we actually sit down and go, okay, maybe I should change something to actually help myself. But it's much better to not have to reach that point and do all of that work beforehand to actually prevent coming to that point. Much better for our well-being as well. So
yeah. And I think as well, like in like a lot of Eastern medicine, is that it's that prevention. So it's like you're doing all these things all the time, whereas Western medicine is we deal with the problem when it arises. And it's like, that's the script we need to flip, is that, okay, let's do this prevention, let's do these things each day, each week, however often it is that you do, that then stops the, I don't know, the heart attacks or like the strokes, because that essentially is what this high level of stress leads to. Like, that is like worst case scenario, really. But if you're in this stressful state for however many years, there's only so long that your body can cope with that before it's like it's a fuse that switches, doesn't it? And it's yeah.
And there are, I don't know, I think the statistics were really staggering, and listeners, don't quote me on this, but I think the statistics said that over 90% of physical illnesses have an underlying cause of stress. And so that is a huge percentage of things that we can suffer from just because we have chronic stress. So much better to work preventatively on that. For autoimmune, chronic illnesses, chronic pain, a lot of those things all come from stress. So yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm a little bit curious about how this breath work works. So do you have maybe a short exercise or something that we could do that our listeners could maybe follow along with or do while they're listening to this, just so we can give them an idea of what a breath work exercise or session would actually look like?
Yeah, of course. Let's just do a couple minutes of more of a calming, down regulation kind of breath work. So this would be really useful if you're in that kind of like stressful state and your heart's beating fast, palms are sweaty, you can feel that stress. Let's do this. So we'll just do a couple of minutes. So if you either sit or lie down, however you want to be, and just take a nice, slow, deep breath in through the nose. And then on your exhale, you can close your eyes if you feel called to. If you start to release any tension that you may be holding in your body. So often this is the shoulders, it can be the eyebrows, the jaw. So just really start to release any tension that may be there. And then we'll start with a technique that's called the flow breath. So what we'll do is we'll inhale in through the nose for 4 seconds. And we'll exhale out of the mouth slowly for 6 seconds. So I'll count through all of this. So you literally just have to listen to my voice. So that'll be in through the nose and out through the mouth. And if you do your exhale as if you're blowing through a straw, so a really nice, slow exhale. So when you're ready, inhale, exhale. 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 And then just come back to your natural breath. So whatever it is, your natural breathing rhythm. And then just notice how it feels to be in your body. So this is the part that is quite important with you then being able to tap into your body. So do you notice any tingles, any sensations? Notice that tension, if potentially the tension may have come back into the shoulders or the jaw. So we can often release that tension, but naturally it will just come back, and it is just a repetitive process of telling those shoulders to stay down, releasing that jaw. And then when you're ready, you can slowly open your eyes. And essentially what that breath technique is when we inhale, we activate the sympathetic branch. And when we exhale, we activate the parasympathetic branch. So if we have equal inhale and exhale, obviously then we're quite balanced. But often what can happen is we're taking quick, longer, or quite big inhales, and then shorter exhales, which is keeping us in that activated state. We'd then be breathing quite fast. So this breath has elongated our exhales. So that has activated that parasympathetic branch. So you're getting into that more rest and digest, that calming state within your body. So you can do that wherever, whenever. That's a great one to just whip out when you need just a couple of minutes. Hopefully you would have been able to feel the difference there. And that is a really powerful one as well.
Amazing. It actually feels very relaxing. I was relaxing in my chair, feeling my shoulders drop down. And also it felt like my ears were dropping down. I think there's a lot of tension sort of in the neck that we hold. So
yeah. So wonderful. It's in our shoulders and in our neck. When we're in that sympathetic state, it'll come up because that's you're protecting your organs there. So if you are stressed, and I definitely was this shoulders by the ears girl, but it is just bringing those shoulders down. A really good way to do it, and remember, is if you pick like a colour and you think every time that you see that colour, relax your shoulders, you then associate it with it. So say if you're picking blue, every time you see something blue, you relax your shoulders, and then naturally you'll start to relax your shoulders a bit more. Because if you're just trying to remember to relax your shoulders, you don't remember, do you?
That's actually a really great way to think about that, because I think you notice only when it starts hurting. So when you're so scrunched up that it actually starts making pinches. So it's better to prevent that for sure. And wonderful exercise. And of course, the listeners can go back through the episode and just kind of flip back to the point where you started the exercise, and they can listen to that again. And any time that they need, they can do this kind of breathing where we have a longer exhale than we have an inhale to have that calming and relaxing effect on the nervous system. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. That's fantastic. Now, you also work with clients, including breathwork and diverse other things. So what kind of programs and services do you actually offer? I imagine our listeners are a bit curious at this point what this breathwork thing is all about. So how can they connect with you and how could they potentially work with you?
Yeah, so you can connect with me via all the socials at CP Wellness Coach. And through that, you'll be able to access, I've got a free Breathe to Sleep audio. Whenever I spoke to anyone, they always said sleep was one of their biggest issues. So I made an audio that people can literally just press play on as they get into their bed and slowly fall asleep. Quite a few people have said they don't even get to the end. They don't even get halfway through and they're asleep. So it does its job. So you can download that. That's a freebie. So it's a nice way to have just like that little bit more of a taster of breathwork. I run an online membership. So this is fully online. And I made this for the busy person who will say they never have the time, because that was me last year. It was like I wanted the wellness, but I couldn't fit it in. So this online membership has 2 tiers. So you can either breathe with me live twice a month, where you'll get the nervous system regulation breathwork and that deeper transformational breathwork, and then access to pre-recorded audios with a suggested calendar. So I've tried to make it so easy that you don't even have to think about which breaths that you're going to be doing. I'm telling you which breaths to do, and it's only breathing 3 times a week, so that you're not feeling like you have to commit 3 hours a day for the next 40 years. These audios are about 7 to 20 minutes a day. So you can pick which one fits in with your timing if the suggested one that I've put out there doesn't quite work. So we breathe on the 2nd and the 4th Wednesday of every month. So again, super simple. It's in your calendar. You've got that for the duration of the membership. And then we have tier 1, which is where you get the nervous system regulation live call and the audios as well. So it is that simple, and made it so simple so that it is just so easy to implement into your life. And then I host a lot of different face-to-face events, so mostly in the northeast of the UK and Manchester. And these range from collaborations with yoga studios, with gyms. I do corporate events. So I always have those on my socials. You'll be able to find those on my Linktree page. And then I do corporate online sessions as well. So I think we all know that sitting at a laptop all day, the posture that you have, the amount of time that you're actually sitting there and not moving away, if we just have a few of these different breath techniques that we can take away. And I think for me, a bit of an understanding of the breath, it'll be so supportive for you with your brain fog, your sleep, your concentration, all those things that will then support you to be a better business owner, employee, whatever it is that you do. So there's a few different ways there, but one thing I will always say is if you have a question of breathwork, please just message me on any of the socials. I am more than happy to answer anything that is breathwork related. I know it can be so much information if this is the first time you're kind of hearing about it, or if you've dabbled a little bit and you're like, I don't know what breathwork I was doing. So yeah, if you have any questions, please just pop me a message. I'm more than happy to discuss with you what breathwork would be best, or whether, I don't know, like what part of the membership would be better for you, what you want to achieve, and just kind of like create the perfect tool to support you and your nervous system, your body.
Amazing. And I feel like we can all use some of that in our lives because, like you said, it's very unrealistic to think nobody has any stress in their lives. So that sounds amazing and like a wonderful tool that our listeners can add to their lives and their healing journey. And amazing things happen when you regulate the nervous system. Like you said, it actually creates quite the shift and the change in our lives, mentally, physically, also very often on a spiritual level. So lots of amazing benefits that come from doing breath work and incorporating that into your life. And no excuse, Claire has made this really easy for everyone. So even if you don't have a lot of time, definitely can be incorporated into your life. And you can also benefit from this wonderful, wonderful tool for your own healing journey. So we, of course, will be linking to all of Clare's offerings in the show notes as well. So be sure to check there for her social links and also the links to her membership and different events that she's putting on. You can check that out. And if you do live in that area in the UK, you can meet with her personally. And otherwise, make sure that you connect with her if you have any questions about breathwork, or you want to just dip your toes in, get the freebie that she's offering, and connect with her that way. Well, this has been another incredible episode, and I really hope our listeners have enjoyed our journey into this transformational breathwork that we've been talking about. I really enjoyed this episode, and I learned so much about breathwork. So there's a lot more to it than just breathing. So thank you so much for coming on today, Clare, and sharing your wisdom with us and with the listeners. I truly appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Take care, Clare.
Bye.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Jōrni Podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Jōrni on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejōrni.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.